What is up, guys? Welcome back to another GeekaWhat video. In this one, I'm going to be building the ultimate 4K gaming PC build for 2023 and beyond. This is a build that is super capable of playing all the latest titles with the settings pumped right to the max, powered by an awesome collection of parts that I'm going to talk you through today as I show you how you put this system together and, of course, its performance in a benchmarking section later on. So what are we waiting for? Let's do this. This video will be split into a few key sections. First, I'm going to walk you guys through the parts I chose for this build and show you how to put it together as we go. Second, I'm going to look at the performance of this system to see how it all stacks up. And I'm going to conclude things by giving you my closing thoughts on this build, including alternative part choices, things I like, and things that perhaps could be improved. So let me kick things off by talking about the processor and, of course, the motherboard. Quite a heavy motherboard, actually. Anyway, in terms of the CPU, I've gone for this. It's the Core i9-13900K, and it's one of the best CPUs on the market right now for both gaming and also productivity tasks such as streaming and video editing. With a whopping 24 cores and 32 threads, 8 being Intel's high-power P cores, the other 16 being their more efficiency-oriented cores for your background tasks, it's really solid. Loads of overclocking headroom on the CPU that's hopefully now not broken. That would not be a good way to start. Of course, AMD have some good options on their Ryzen 7000 lineup too, but the 13900K really is an amazing choice for a system like this one. I'll be installing it into the NZXT N7Z790. NZXT make motherboards? Yes, and they actually do a fairly good job. It isn't the highest end motherboard in the world, I'm going to be honest with you. It's got this really cool black shielding on it that helps to make the PCB look super sleek, awesome for a minimalist system. Obviously supports DDR5 memory and all of the latest 13th and maybe even the 14th gen chips that are rumored to be landing with a BIOS update. The 13900K is a great option, but it might be worth seeing what Intel bring out later in the year if the rumors are indeed true. In terms of installing the CPU into the motherboard, that is hopefully going to be pretty easy, but first I actually need to unbox the motherboard, get us moving along. Oh, that's not a nice noise. Taking it out of its anti-static bag. Don't need any of that. Don't need you. Get out of here. And laying it flat on the table. To install the CPU, simply lift up the arm on the socket, remove the socket cover itself. And on an Intel chip, you've got the arm one side, the socket cover the other. AMD have basically got the same socket design nowadays too, which makes things really easy. Drop the CPU in, add the cover on, bit of retention arm, black plastic. Save this for later, just in case you've got like a faulty motherboard and need to return it or sell it, for example. I'm going to add in the RAM or the memory next. This is a 6000 megahertz kit of Thermaltake's ToughRAM XG ARGB D5. Basically, it's DDR5 memory, 32 gigs, decent latencies. You might want to go for 64 gigs, especially if you're going to use this build for more than just gaming, like video editing, rendering, CAD design, all that good stuff. Slide the DIMMs into place, bit of pressure on each side, and they'll click in nice and easily. I do like this Thermaltake RAM. I've gone for a bit of a Thermaltake theme in this build. They've been releasing some exciting stuff recently, so I'm hoping it all ties in super nicely. NVMe drive is next, and this is an area where things might not tie in quite as smoothly, but we'll see. The Samsung SSD 980 Pro is a great drive, and this heatsink version should keep things nice and cool. I just need to check whether or not it will actually fit in the slot. If not, I might have to swap this out for the non-heatsink version. I just had this one to hand and thought it would be easier if I could use it. In order to find out whether or not it is going to fit, I'm just going to remove the included cover, the included heat spreader, take that off, slide the drive in. Oh, I've got a bad feeling about this. No, that's not going to work. Oh, I've messed that up big time. Doesn't fit. Let me swap this out for the actual heatsink variant, which is a far smarter decision of the 980 Pro. Moral of the story, drives with heatsinks don't always work. I mean, you could just leave the cover off, but that defeats the point of buying the NZXT N7 motherboard. And because they've put the M.2 slot on the left, not the right, the drive text is actually upside down. So don't buy this, buy the one I've linked down below instead. At this stage of the build, the motherboard assembly is now nearly ready to go into the case. But first, I do want to take a look at the CPU cooler. I've gone for high cooling capacity in this build, a 420mm all-in-one in fact. In particular, it's the CPU cooler manual that needs to be consulted, as it might be easier to prep some of the installation now, rather than when the actual rad is mounted in the case. So by the looks of things, yes, there is a backplate and some posts that we can grab out just to make our lives a little bit easier later. It's not the end of the world if you forget this step of the build, but highly advise you give it a go now. In terms of the backplate, we need this one. You can see here it's got RGA 1700 on, meaning it's the exact right model for the motherboard. And you'll also find these sort of screw stopper posts things. They're also going to go on as part of the installation process. Now, once that's done, the motherboard is ready to go. The next part on the list is the... Feels like an earthquake. The case, the Thermaltake CTE 700 Air. That is a bit bigger than I'd expected. Let me get some scissors. It is widely reported that I do have a bit of a height problem anyway, and this case is not making matters any easier. Whoopsie. I will admit, now I've removed the box, it is feeling a little bit smaller, which is a big relief, because before it was massive. From what I understand, this case is part of the, I'm out of breath, the Thermaltake CTE range, where you basically have intake everywhere apart from the top, which is exhaust. So you've got that sort of chimney-esque airflow design. I'm going to remove all the side panels, which are all quite handily toolless, and then lay the case down flat, so installing the motherboard becomes hopefully a bit easier. A quick glance at the motherboard standoffs, and they all look to be in the right place. And this is where the sideways mounted motherboard comes into play, whereby essentially the graphics card then populates this area here and is essentially mounted vertically? No, horizontally. Sideways. Sideways. It's mounted vertically sideways in the case, which should help prevent things like GPU sag and also help with airflow and temperatures. So a few screws on the motherboard, which should secure it pretty nicely. Once that's in, CPU cooler is next. 420 mils is massive. And if you've got an i3, a Ryzen 5, Ryzen 7, i7, totally overkill. But for an i9 or a Ryzen 9, actually makes a lot of sense. Because the radiator is bigger, there's obviously more space to actually dissipate the heat. And because the fans are larger on this radiator, they can run a bit slower and have the same impact. It comes as standard with 3 RGB 140mm fans, so that's obviously good. But I've picked up, where are they? Some bonus packs so that I can actually have push-pull on the radiator and have RGB on both sides. Now the case does come with 3 fans as standard, an intake on either side and exhaust at the top. Maybe for the price point and for the airflow philosophy, I'd like to see another 2 maybe, so 4 or 5 fans as standard, but no major issue. Gonna swap all the included fans out, have the rad in push-pull, and have this bringing in air from the right-hand side of the chassis. A drop of thermal paste on the processor. Might have to be a bit quick so it doesn't slide down the CPU. Made a bit of a mess of that, but never mind. Then the actual cooler plate itself goes on. I think we're gonna go this way. The tubes are gonna look pretty good like that. Quickly add the tension thumb screws on, so 1 in each corner. Once one of them's on, it stops the whole thing really from falling off. And then wrap things up by just tightening them down one by one. Try and do this in a cross pattern and avoid over tightening any singular screw at any one time. Next up is the graphics card. Now I have gone for the 4080 and in some ways this is maybe a slightly controversial choice. It's also worth considering the 7900 XTX as well if you're looking for something that's fairly similar in terms of pricing and an alternative option on the performance front. This card still has 16 gigs of VRAM, you get DLSS 3, better ray tracing. There are certainly advantages to going for an NVIDIA 40 series GPU. The 4080 and 4090 are 2 of the only cards in the lineup I'd really hugely recommend. The 4070 Ti isn't totally terrible either, but unfortunately the 60 Ti, and even the 70 in some ways are just not that compelling as far as GPU options go. This MSI Suprim option is also very nicely designed. If MSI are doing a good job of anything these days, it is designing awesome coolers. Not only from like an aesthetics point of view, I mean, how amazing does this GPU cooler look? But also performance-wise, loads of heat pipes, awesome backplate, really dense heatsink. It's just an exquisitely designed card, and I've said this time and time again. I'll say it time and time again. Really, really, really solid bit of kit. Good work, MSI. In this build, it is actually going to go in a slightly unique orientation, a little something like this, and should look pretty good. There are silver accents on this card, but there's still plenty of darker areas too, and I'm thinking it should look pretty nice. I'm going to take out the first and second or second and third PCI lanes. Let me double check. It is the second, third and fourth PCI lanes because it's a 3-slot chunky boy. Then go ahead and clip the graphics card into place. Cables and wiring will come in just a moment. Yes, look at that. Oh, beautiful. I'm going to finish things off by adding the thumb screws back in before the GPU falls out of thin air or something like that. But the build is looking sick. I'm super, super happy. Okay, we've had more fans. A fan delivery. Look at that for timing. I was just saying how good this looked. I think I might add some more fans. I was very obviously staying aged, I will admit. But I'm going to put 3 RGB fans at the back, maybe even a couple at the bottom, take out this pump mount and replace the one at the top, just to give us even more airflow. Because why the hell not? Oh my goodness. So the fans are in. There's 6 at the front, 1 at the top, 7, 3 at the back, 10, 2 at the bottom, 12. Quick maths. They're all in. Good stuff. PSU's next. Where's the power supply? Here it is over here. Oh, there's fans everywhere. Why are there so many fans about? Power supply, Thermaltake, Tough Power, 1200, PCI Gen 5, ATX3. No other details are really important. Japanese capacitors, 10-year warranty. What more could you want? I'll put it down below if you're really that keen on learning more. If you're wondering, it installs at the back of the case in this area down here. So I'm going to pop that in, maybe add a couple of PSU cable extensions in for good measure, and go from there. And there we finally have it. It's been a mission, it's been a journey, but it's looking good. I'm going to go ahead and wire up all the cables and all the fans that make this build possible, and then jump into performance. But first, how good it looks in the only way we know how. It's time for an epic GeekaWhat montage. With the system looking good, the next port of call is to take a peek at performance. And I've tested this awesome high airflow 4080 powered build in a wide range of titles to answer that question once and for all. Let me start things off with Hogwarts Legacy, kicking it off with a AAA title at 4K high settings. The build achieved a pretty strong 81 frames per second on average, with 76 and 63 for the 90 and 99th percentiles. Move through into Star Wars Jedi Survivor, and we knocked the resolution down in this title to 1440p. On average, the build pulled in 110 frames per second on the epic quality preset, with 90 and 99% results in the region of 101 and 90 frames per second. Move through into Warzone 2 at 4K next, and the build achieved 107 FPS on average, with 97 and 80 for the 90 and 99th percentiles, showing that Call of Duty is of course more than capable of being run at decent frame rates, 4K resolution on this build. Talking of resolutions, let's drop it down to 1080p just for the giggles. Competitive settings, it is of course Fortnite, 318 frames per second on average. Wow, wow, wow. This build is a complete monster, and as you can imagine, at 1080p stacks up very well. Apex Legends at 4K high is next up, 198 frames per second on average, with 186 and 176 for the 90 and 99th percentile results, rounding out an awesome set of gaming benchmark results. This build really is impressive, and if you want to learn more about any of the parts mentioned, there will be affiliate links in the description below. Thanks for watching though, and as always, we'll see you in the next one.